My name is Gloria, but everyone calls me Glow. I'm 61 years old. For years, I've lived in the shadows of my own daughter, Diana. To her, I wasn't a mother to be honored or respected. I was background help. The woman who ironed dresses, cooked meals, answered calls, and stood quietly at the edge of every celebration. She never introduced me with pride. At her wedding, when the maîtresse asked who I was, she didn't hesitate. "She's staff," she said, as though the word explained everything. I smiled, carried on, and swallowed the ache. That was nearly 20 years ago, but the sting has never left me. This morning, Diana walked into my kitchen as if the house were hers. No greeting, no warmth. She placed a thick folder on my table. Menus, flower arrangements, guest lists. 40 names penciled in her sharp handwriting. "It's only 40 guests, Mom. Just put it on your card." Her tone was light, but her eyes carried the same command they always did. I stared at the folder. To her, it was just another event to shine. To me, it was heavier than paper. It carried decades of unspoken demands, a lifetime of being treated like a servant in my own family. She left without waiting for an answer, convinced I'd obey as always. But tomorrow, at that birthday gala, her certainty will shatter. She believes I exist to bow. What she doesn't know is that the stage she built for herself is about to become mine. Mornings in my house are quiet, almost ritualistic. I wake before the sun has fully climbed, pad across the kitchen tiles in my slippers, and set the kettle to boil. The whistle of steam has been my companion for years, more reliable than people. I take my tea in a blue ceramic cup I bought at a flea market in Brighton decades ago. 1 sugar, a dash of milk. I sip it while watching the sparrows squabble on the garden fence. It's a simple life on the surface. Quiet, steady, uneventful. At least, that's what everyone believes. After tea, I usually head out for groceries. The shop clerks know me as the polite older woman who buys flour, apples, and lamb on Saturdays for the Sunday roast. I always make extra enough to feed Diana, her husband Victor, and their 2 children, though most weeks they barely thank me for the effort. Diana sweeps in with her silk scarves and sunglasses, her perfume trailing like she's walking a runway, not entering her mother's home. Victor usually follows, phone pressed to his ear, rolling his eyes at my attempts to ask about his work. They sit at my table like guests at a hotel buffet, waiting to be served. I don't complain. Not out loud. My presence in their lives has always been the quiet, dutiful one. I iron Diana's dresses when she forgets. I carry bags when she shops, holding the heavy handles while she scrolls through her phone. I've even been pushed out of family photographs, her hand firm on my shoulder. "Mom, maybe sit this one out, it's just us." Just us. As if I wasn't part of the very fabric holding her life together. The deepest cut came at her wedding. I remember standing by the reception doors, smoothing down my dress, proud and nervous. The maitre d' asked Diana who I was so they could seat me properly. Her answer was sharp, effortless, cruel. "She's staff." My chest tightened, but I forced a smile and walked to the kitchen to fetch trays, pretending I belonged there. It was the first time I realized she truly saw me as less. Not a mother, not family. Just utility. Neighbors assume my life is small, ordinary. They wave when they see me trimming the roses, assume I'm retired, maybe a little lonely. Some drop by with casseroles after church, whispering that it must be hard living alone. I thank them kindly, never correcting their assumptions. None of them know about the years I spent building something far beyond these suburban fences. None of them know about Aurora Consulting. Inside a drawer in my kitchen sits a faded photo of a team sharp suits, bright smiles, a skyline behind us. I was at the center, blazer crisp, eyes alive with purpose. That was my world once. And in truth, it still is. In the lining of my purse, I carry a keycard embossed with the logo, Aurora Consulting. My company. The one I built from the ground up, the one that still calls on me quietly, privately, because sometimes the founders need a steady hand to guide them. On my wrist, I wear a silver bracelet. It looks simple, unassuming. Most people think it's costume jewelry, something bought on sale. But it was a gift from a client who once told me, "You saw me when no one else did." It reminds me of respect, the kind Diana has never given me. I keep these symbols close but hidden, a photo in a drawer, a bracelet mistaken for trinket, a key card no one knows about. To the world, to my daughter, I am nothing more than a retired, invisible woman who exists to serve. Victor, her husband, makes sure of that. Once, when Diana was out of the room, he leaned across my table, eyes cold. "You should be grateful you have a roof," he said. "Many women your age don't." His words were meant to shrink me, to remind me of my supposed dependence. He has no idea that the roof over their heads, the security Diana flaunts, was partly built by me, though I never said a word. Diana thrives on appearances. She needs the praise, the applause, the validation that comes with throwing events, wearing designer gowns, posting photos that earn admiration from strangers. Without the spotlight, she dims, and so she keeps feeding it, demanding more. More money, more parties, more proof of her worth. I've always been the silent provider, the one who ensured the bills were covered, the one who smoothed the edges when her world threatened to crumble. But lately, as I sip my tea in the morning, as I run my hands over the worn edges of that photo, as I finger the bracelet absent-mindedly, something has shifted inside me. A realization has grown heavy, undeniable. I have allowed her to script my role for too long. She sees me as the backdrop to her performance, but I know the truth of who I am and what I've built. And so when she placed that folder of gala plans on my kitchen table, expecting me to obey, expecting me to pay, she did not realize she had lit the fuse. Tomorrow, Diana will gather her guests. The lights will glow, the champagne will flow, the praise she craves will hang thick in the air. She imagines it will be her perfect night. But she has forgotten one thing. Behind every dazzling show is someone who controls the stage. And this time, that someone is me. The knock at the door came sharp, impatient, the kind of knock Diana always used, as if every surface in the world owed her attention. I opened it to find her already stepping past me, a swirl of perfume and heels clicking on my floor. "Mom," she said, dropping a heavy leather folder onto my kitchen table. "We need to move quickly on this. It's only 40 guests. Just put it on your card, and I'll handle the rest." Her tone was crisp, dismissive, the kind she reserved for people she considered beneath her. I stared at the folder, its glossy edges gleaming under the light. Inside, no doubt, were menus, flower samples, and guest lists scrawled in her decisive hand. "Diana," I began, but the words felt caught in my throat. Years of training had conditioned me to silence. She waved her hand. "It's not that big a deal. Honestly, Mom, this is what you're good at, supporting me. And don't stress, I'll pay you back. Eventually." I said nothing. The weight of her words pressed against me like invisible chains. How many times had I swallowed my pride? How many times had I nodded when she barked, carried the bags, stood in the background, erased myself from the photographs? Each memory was a cut, small but deep, layered, until I could barely feel where I ended and her demands began. "Anyway, I've got to run," she added, glancing at her watch. "Victor's waiting. Just make sure it's covered by tomorrow. We can't afford delays, you understand." She leaned down, kissed the air near my cheek, and was gone, her heels clicking down the path. Silence settled. I stood at the table staring at the folder, my hands trembling slightly. The humiliation was sharp, but it was familiar, the same sting I had endured for decades. Then my phone buzzed. A new email notification lit up the screen. I tapped it absently, expecting another grocery store coupon or reminder from the pharmacy. But the subject line stopped me cold. "Eleanor Wu, finalizing tomorrow's agreement." My eyes widened as I opened it. "Glow," it read, "looking forward to finalizing the $5 million consulting deal tomorrow. Your insights have been invaluable. Dinner afterward, my treat." I sat down hard, the words blurring and then sharpening as I reread them. Eleanor Wu. CEO of one of the largest hotel chains in the world, a woman whose name carried weight across continents. And she was writing to me, thanking me, respecting me, trusting me. The contrast made my chest ache. To Diana, I was a servant. A wallet? A silent shadow? To global leaders, I was an advisor, a strategist, someone whose judgment could shape empires. For a long moment, I just sat there, my bracelet cool against my wrist, the old photo of my office team flashing in my mind. I wasn't invisible, not really. I had only allowed myself to play that role in Diana's theater. Something shifted deep inside me then, small but unbreakable. The folder on the table no longer looked like paper. It looked like the final straw. I closed my phone slowly, the email still glowing in my thoughts. Tomorrow would not be what Diana imagined. She believed the gala was her stage, her moment to shine. But I knew better. Tomorrow, the performance would belong to me. And for the first time in decades, I felt the beginnings of a smile tug at my lips. By the next morning, I had slipped into the life Diana could never imagine for me. I rose early, dressed in a navy suit that had hung untouched in my wardrobe for weeks, and slid the silver bracelet onto my wrist. The kitchen was still quiet, the folder of gala plans untouched on the table. I tucked it beneath a stack of magazines, out of sight, out of mind, and left the house with my leather briefcase. The drive into the city always feels like a transformation. Suburbia fades in the rearview mirror, replaced by the rising glass towers of downtown. Traffic is a nuisance, but I never mind. Each mile carries me closer to the world where I am not mom or staff, but Ms. Whitfield, founder and principal of Aurora Consulting. When I walk through the polished marble lobby of our office building, the security guard greets me by name. "Good morning, Ms. Whitfield." His respect is casual, unforced, and I nod back with a warmth that always surprises me. Upstairs, my staff waits. Analysts, strategists, and managers, all of them younger, hungrier, eager to learn. They look up when I step onto the floor, conversations pausing for just a beat before resuming. I feel their energy wash over me. "Morning, Ms. Whitfield," calls Claire, my senior associate, handing me a report hot off the printer. "Thank you, Claire," I reply, skimming the figures. The rhythm of this place is familiar, grounding. I built Aurora quietly over 25 years, starting with freelance contracts while Diana was at school, then expanding into partnerships, and finally into the consulting powerhouse it is today. Every success has been hidden from Diana's view, carefully walled off. She never asked what I did with my days, and I never offered the truth. Yet here, in these glass-walled offices, I am not invisible. Here, people lean forward when I speak. They know I see patterns others miss, that I can turn a struggling company into a thriving one with the right words and numbers. But even in this sanctuary, the tension follows me. My phone vibrates with messages, each one sharper than the last. "Mom, did you confirm the florist? Don't forget to book the champagne. Not cheap stuff. Call me back immediately." Diana's voice lives in my pocket, a constant stream of commands that has no place in this world. I silence the phone, but it buzzes again minutes later. By lunch, I've received 12 messages. The 13th comes from Victor. His tone is smug, taunting. "Don't mess this up for Diana. You know how much this means to her." My jaw tightens. I can picture his smirk, the way he leans in just close enough to make the words sting. He has always known how to sharpen my insecurities into weapons. I set the phone face down on my desk and stare at the bracelet circling my wrist. It catches the light, a glint of silver against my skin. I hear the words of the man who gave it to me years ago, one of my first clients. "Respect isn't asked for, it's earned." He had looked me in the eye when he said it, genuine and steady. And in that moment, I had believed him. But what about respect from your own blood? Can it be earned when someone refuses to see you as worthy? The thought gnaws at me through the afternoon. Part of me still aches with the instinct to serve, to smooth Diana's path even if it tramples mine. That motherly duty has shaped my entire adult life. Yet beneath it now pulses a new defiance. Why should I bow when the world already recognizes me as someone who stands tall? At 3 o'clock, an email pings into my inbox. My breath hitches when I see the sender, Eleanor Wu. "Glow," she writes. "I've landed in town earlier than expected. I hear whispers about your daughter's gala tomorrow evening. If it's not an imposition, I'd be delighted to attend as a guest. It would give us a chance to finalize the contract in person. Let me know if there's room at the table." I read it twice, 3 times. Eleanor Wu, one of the most powerful women in the industry, is asking to attend Diana's gala. My pulse quickens. The irony is almost unbearable. Diana believes the gala is her coronation, her moment of triumph. But if Eleanor arrives, the entire spotlight will shift. The stage Diana craves will belong to me. I lean back in my chair, staring at the city skyline through the floor-to-ceiling windows. The weight of the moment presses down and lifts me up all at once. Do I tell Diana? Do I prepare her? Or do I let her walk blindly into the storm she created, so certain of her control, only to watch the ground disappear beneath her? The bracelet is cool against my skin, steadying me. The photo in my kitchen drawer, the keycard in my purse, the email glowing on my screen, all symbols, all reminders. I have spent too many years dimming my own light so my daughter could blind the world with hers. Tomorrow the tension will break, and for the first time, I am ready to see what happens when I stop stepping aside. It was late evening when my phone buzzed again, but this time, the name flashing across the screen wasn't Diana. It was Marcus, my COO at Aurora. I stepped into the kitchen, away from the hum of the television, and answered in a low voice. "Marcus," I said, "make sure the draft presentation is updated before tomorrow. Eleanor wants the revised numbers, and I want them airtight." "She's considering bringing her board in earlier than expected." "Yes, Ms. Whitfield," he replied. "Everything will be ready." I smiled faintly. Marcus had grown from a timid graduate into one of the sharpest strategists I knew. He always addressed me formally, a mark of respect that steadied me. But as I ended the call, I caught a flicker of movement in the doorway. Diana. She leaned casually against the frame, arms crossed, that sly half-smile playing on her lips. "Well, well," she said, tilting her head. "Who's Marcus?" Sounds important. My pulse skipped. I forced a calm expression, slipping the phone into my pocket. "Just a friend helping me with some things," I said evenly. Diana arched an eyebrow. "Uh-huh. You've been on that phone a lot lately." "What do you even do all day, Mom? Besides drink tea and fuss around this house?" Her tone was mocking, sugar-laced with venom. I kept my face neutral, the years of practice making it second nature. "I keep busy," I replied. She smirked, clearly unconvinced. "Well, whatever it is, I hope it's not interfering with tomorrow." "God forbid you forget the champagne." With a flip of her hair, she walked away, satisfied with her little jab. I stood in the kitchen alone, my bracelet catching the light as I exhaled slowly. She thought she had uncovered some tiny scandal, maybe a gardening club, a craft circle, some little hobby to keep me occupied in retirement. In her mind, that was the extent of what I could possibly manage. To her, I was small, invisible. Convenient. But to you, the ones listening now, I can finally say it aloud. The truth is not small, not a hobby. Not even close. I have led Aurora Consulting for 25 years. I have advised CEOs, billionaires, and leaders who shape the world. I've walked into boardrooms where people twice my age and half my experience waited for my word to move forward. And they listened. Not because I asked, but because respect was earned again and again. And yet, in my own home, I let Diana believe I was nothing more than her shadow. Why? Because timing is everything. A truth revealed too soon loses its power. And tomorrow, when the lights of her gala shine bright, the timing will finally be right. For now, Diana thinks she has the upper hand, smug in her belief that I'm hiding something trivial. Let her laugh. Let her underestimate me one more time, because when the curtain rises tomorrow, she won't be laughing. And I won't be silent. The days leading up to the gala stretched taut, every hour thick with Diana's voice. She called at breakfast, at lunch, at night, each conversation less a discussion and more a command. "Mom, please don't wear that navy dress you love. It's too matronly. People will stare. I'll bring you something more suitable." Her suitable arrived the next day, a stiff beige gown with a neckline that did me no favors. I touched the fabric, cold and lifeless, and forced a smile when she shoved it into my arms. "Try not to embarrass me," she said breezily, scrolling through her phone. "This night has to be perfect." I bit back my words. Timing, I reminded myself. On the morning of setup, Diana barked orders as if she were the general of an army. She strutted through the hotel lobby in heels, her clipboard clutched like a weapon, and pressed bag after bag into my hands. "Carry these," she snapped. "Careful with the boxes, Mom. Those are crystal." The straps dug into my palms as I staggered forward. Staff members glanced at me briefly, then nodded as though I were one of them, help hired for the event. One even motioned me toward the service elevator before Diana called me back. "Honestly, Mom, keep up. We don't have time for you to lag behind." Each word lodged deep, sharp as glass. Victor joined us later, smug and languid as ever, leaning against the bar while Diana fussed over centerpieces. He caught me trying to rub the red marks from my hands and smirked. "You know your place, Glow," he murmured low enough that only I could hear. "Don't ruin this for her. She deserves the spotlight, you don't." The cruelty in his tone was deliberate, designed to shrink me further into the shadows. But instead, it hardened something inside me. I carried the bags, I kept silent, but my mind worked steadily, purposefully. Every insult, every jab became fuel. While Diana rehearsed her grand entrance and Victor smirked at his own reflection in the mirrored walls, I slipped into the corner of the hotel lounge and sent a quiet message to Eleanor Wu's assistant. Confirming attendance for tomorrow evening. Delighted to host Ms. Sign. Wu at the gala. I typed the words with steady hands, my heart calm. This wasn't surrender. It was strategy. By the time I returned home that night, the gala folder still lay untouched on my kitchen table. It sat exactly where Diana had dropped it, a monument to her entitlement. I hadn't opened it once, not a menu, not a guest list, not a single receipt. But beside it, in deliberate contrast, sat my bracelet. I slipped it onto my wrist slowly, reverently, feeling the cool silver warm against my skin. It was no longer just an ornament. It was armor. A reminder of who I was beyond these walls, beyond Diana's scorn. The mirror reflected a woman with lines on her face, hair streaked with gray, but eyes steady and alive. A woman who had been overlooked, dismissed, diminished, but never defeated. And as the city settled into night, I whispered to the silence, "Tomorrow she will see me." The night of the gala unfolded like a dream, though not one of mine. The ballroom shimmered with chandeliers, their light cascading over tables dressed in cream and gold. Waiters swept by with trays of champagne, the faint clink of glass blending with laughter and murmurs of wealth. This was Diana's kingdom, or so she believed. I stood near the entrance, adjusting the stiff, beige gown she had insisted I wear. It made me feel invisible, and that was the point. Diana glided across the room in scarlet silk, every strand of hair pinned perfectly, every move a performance. She thrived in this attention, basking in the glow of cameras, society women, and murmured compliments. Victor hovered at her side, his tuxedo crisp, his smirk sharper than any blade. When his gaze caught mine across the room, he strolled over with his champagne glass. "Stay in the shadows, Glow," he whispered, his breath tinged with wine. "Don't ruin this for her." "Tonight isn't yours." I nodded, my face a mask, but under the tablecloth where no one could see, my hand tightened around the bracelet on my wrist. Its cool silver steadied me. The night flowed in waves of greetings and shallow pleasantries. Guests admired the decor, the floral arrangements, the live quartet tucked in the corner. Diana was tireless, moving table to table with an air of command, thanking donors as though she alone had secured their generosity. I kept to the edges, fetching her a glass of water when asked, carrying a stack of programs when ordered. To anyone watching, I was little more than help, a placeholder, an accessory. And then the air shifted. A murmur rippled at the entrance, the kind of ripple that changes the current of a room. Heads turned, whispers rose, and the quartet's music faltered as the doors opened wider. Eleanor Wu had arrived. The Eleanor Wu, CEO of one of the largest global tech conglomerates, a woman whose presence carried weight like gravity itself. Her sleek black gown flowed like water, her stride assured, her reputation preceding her. Even the most jaded guests straightened in their seats. Diana gasped audibly, then nearly stumbled in her rush to greet her. Miss Wu. We are so honored, truly, what a surprise. I watched from across the ballroom, the corner of my mouth curving slightly. Diana didn't know. She thought Eleanor had simply wandered into her carefully staged kingdom. The truth was more precise. Eleanor was here for me. Diana, flustered but eager, extended her hand with a flourish. I'm Diana Whitfield, event chair. I must say, your reputation precedes you. We're thrilled to welcome someone of your stature tonight. Eleanor accepted the handshake politely, but her eyes were already scanning the room. Searching. And then she found me. Her face softened, her stride redirected. Without hesitation, she moved past Diana, past Victor, past the cluster of eager board members. She walked straight toward me. Ah, Gloria! Eleanor's voice rang out clear and warm, echoing in the hushed ballroom. Wonderful to see you. We're finalizing the $5 million deal, yes? Your leadership has impressed us all. Time fractured. Gasps rippled through the guests. Glasses clinked in startled hands. A hush fell heavy and thick. Every head turned. I felt their eyes on me, their confusion, their dawning realization. Diana froze mid-smile, her jaw slack, her perfectly rehearsed poise crumbling. She blinked once, twice, as if her vision had betrayed her. Wait, what? She stammered, her voice small and trembling. You know her? Eleanor glanced at her mildly, as though the question were absurd. Know her? Gloria isn't just my consultant. She's the boss who makes empires thrive. The words fell like thunder, impossible to ignore. The balance of the evening shifted on its axis. The spotlight that had clung to Diana slid effortlessly onto me. Respect flooded the room in silence, heavier, truer than applause. Chairs scraped as a few board members instinctively rose to greet me. A waiter straightened his posture. Even the quartet faltered into stillness, and I stood. Not gloating, not triumphant, simply present, grounded in the truth of who I was. I inclined my head slightly, a gesture of acknowledgement. Eleanor, thank you for being here tonight, she smiled. Wouldn't miss it. Your work has been extraordinary. Diana swayed as if struck. She turned to Victor, desperate, her eyes wide. But he too was pale now, his smirk gone. His grip tightened on his champagne glass until it threatened to shatter. Gloria? Diana whispered, as though testing a language she'd never spoken. What is this? You're... I let the silence answer. I didn't need to explain 25 years of building Aurora Consulting brick by brick, deal by deal. I didn't need to recount the nights of labor, the flights, the contracts, the empires I'd helped shape. It was all here, embodied in Eleanor's presence, in her words, in the shift of the room's respect. Diana's voice cracked again, sharper this time. Why didn't you tell me? I met her eyes. For the first time in years, I didn't flinch. Because you weren't ready to hear. Her lips parted, but no words came. Victor stepped forward, his voice strained. This changes nothing. Tonight is about Diana. But his words rang hollow, tinny against the grandeur of the truth. The guests weren't looking at him. They weren't looking at Diana. Their gaze rested squarely on me. The music resumed softly, the evening's current realigning itself. Conversations resumed, but hushed now, reverent. People began to approach me, offering hands, questions, admiration. And through it all, I stood steady, the silver bracelet cool against my wrist. This was not revenge. It was revelation. I didn't gloat. I didn't raise my voice. I let dignity and silence carry the weight. Because sometimes the loudest triumph is simply being seen. Victor's face had drained of color. Diana stood frozen, her clipboard limp in her hand, her scarlet gown suddenly too heavy for her small frame. I turned away from them, toward Eleanor, toward the guests who now sought me out not as background, not as shadow, but as myself. Gloria Whitfield, not the forgotten mother. Not the mocked wife, the leader, the woman who built empires. And for the first time in years, I breathed fully, freely, as the gala went on without needing me to lift a finger. I wasn't in the shadows anymore. The gala, once Diana's stage, no longer belonged to her. Everywhere I looked, faces turned toward me, smiling, curious, congratulatory. Men in tuxedos and women draped in jewels leaned forward, eager to shake my hand. I felt their respect, not as flattery but as recognition, a weight earned over years of silent labor. Ms. Smand. Whitfield, I've read about Aurora's work in the European markets, one guest said, bowing slightly. Another added, incredible to finally meet you. Your reputation precedes you. Their words rippled through me, both familiar and strange. For decades, I had heard these sentiments in boardrooms and hotel suites across the world. But to hear them here, in Diana's glittering kingdom where I had always been invisible, felt like justice rendered without malice. I glanced at Diana. She stood rigid near the stage, her glass trembling in her hand. Her scarlet gown, once radiant, now looked like a costume, a hollow performance. I could see the questions swirling in her eyes. How long? How much? How could she keep this from me? Victor hovered beside her, his lips tight, his bravado gone. He whispered something, probably an attempt at reassurance, but no one listened to him. For the first time, his smallness was exposed, his cruelty illuminated under the chandelier light. I didn't need to gloat. The silence around them was punishment enough. Eleanor touched my arm lightly. "Shall we?" she asked. I nodded. We had real business to discuss, contracts to finalize, futures to build. The gala was Diana's concern, not mine. I walked toward the doors, my stride unhurried, measured. Each step carried me further from the role Diana had written for me, the obedient mother, the silent servant, the background figure. Halfway across the room, I paused. My fingers brushed against the silver bracelet on my wrist. Its cool weight reminded me of the client who had pressed it into my hand years ago with those words, "Respect isn't asked for, it's earned." Tonight, those words lived fully in me. From the corner of my eye, I saw Diana finally move. She stepped forward as if to call my name, her lips parting in desperation. But the words faltered. No command, no insult, no plea left her mouth. She simply watched me go, the reality of her lies and superiority collapsing around her. I didn't turn back. Victor said nothing either. He knew, perhaps more clearly than Diana, that his mocking, his dismissals, had been built on the sand of assumption. His sneer had no place here now. The guests, sensing the shift, didn't wait for Diana to regain her footing. They turned their full attention to me, some following to the doors, eager to extend invitations, to schedule meetings, to secure alliances. Diana's gala was still alive, but it was hers alone to host now, without me as her safety net. Eleanor and I stepped into the crisp night air, the hum of conversation fading behind us. A black car waited at the curb, sleek and ready. As the driver opened the door, I slipped my hand into my purse and felt the familiar shape of my keycard. Aurora Consulting. My life's work, once hidden, was no longer in the shadows. I smiled softly, the night air cool against my face. I had walked into the gala as Diana's staff. I walked out as myself. My name is Gloria, though everyone calls me Glow. For years, I lived in silence, even in my own home. My daughter saw me as a servant, not a mother. She spoke over me, dismissed me, paraded me as background while she claimed the spotlight. And I let it happen. But invisibility doesn't erase worth. Respect isn't something you beg for. It's something you build, moment by moment, deal by deal, boundary by boundary. And when the time is right, it shines, whether others are ready for it or not. The night of the gala wasn't about revenge. It was about truth. The truth that I had built an empire. The truth that my silence was not weakness, but patience. The truth that dignity doesn't need a microphone. It speaks for itself. I didn't scold Diana. I didn't lecture Victor. I didn't raise my voice. I simply stood in the light of what I had already earned and let the room see me. And that was enough. So I ask you, what would you have done if your own daughter treated you like a servant? Would you have kept bowing your head, letting the years of small cuts bleed you dry? Or would you have stood tall when the moment came, not with anger but with dignity? Because one thing I know now, silence can hide you, but it can also protect the fire until it's ready to blaze. And when it does, no one can ignore it.